Good afternoon. Welcome to the first interaction session, live session for database management systems. So, here in the next 1 hour, I would like to address queries that you all have, the issues that are faced by some of you in the primarily in the first 4 weeks of the course. So, what I will do is I have many of you have already asked questions through the Google Sheet. So, I have collated those questions and we will have the discussions on those as we go through, and we have also picked up a few questions that are frequently appearing on the forum, important questions, and we will try to give you pointers on that. And meanwhile, if there are new questions that come up on the chat, we will discuss those as well. So, to start with, first let us talk about questions that are coming on SQL, which certainly is the most important part of the database management course, the relational database management course. And many of you have asked how to learn SQL and programming easily, or how to solve queries. Naturally, if you have done some programming languages earlier, you would understand that there is only one way to learn writing programs or writing queries, that is to really practice. So, there is only one advice that I can give you: practice, practice and practice more. But certainly on the way, I would strongly advise that you study the textbook that has been prescribed, study that thoroughly. It has a lot of exercises, attempt those, solve the assignments, and to help you, we are also preparing a couple of tutorials which will give you different examples of queries and help you in the process. So, when they are shared next week, please go through them and then let us know if it helps. There is another question on SQL, which is not really on SQL, but on the embedded side, which was how to connect database with the C program. So, this is embedded programming. We talked about it in module 11, and the tutorial will have some examples of that as well. This is too detailed to discuss in this session. Other question related to this is, there was a question on about Cursor. Some of you wanted to ask what is Cursor. So, we have also discussed that in module 11. So, when we embed some SQL query in the programming language, naturally two kinds of variables get involved. One are the variables or attributes of the relational database, the SQL itself, and the other are the variables of the programming language. If you are programming in C, the C language variables. So, you can set different values in the SQL variables through the C variables. Now, when you get the result, naturally typically the result of an SQL query will typically be a table. So, the question is how do you get this result back to your C program, which normally does not support a table. So, Cursor is a pointer kind of mechanism by which you can go over the rows of the table one by one and actually extract different field values. So, here in the slide we have again, I have again shown how to declare a cursor, and we will show more use of that in the tutorial example. There was a generic question and many others where some of you wanted to have more examples. Examples have been discussed in module 6 to 11. So, but we here I am again giving you some examples of the key areas of SQL query. Now, certainly the first thing that you need to learn well is how to create tables. So, once you have the schema from the relational design, you have learned that. Then you need to use create table, the format as you already know. In the create table, you basically specify what are the attributes. So, put every attribute and put the data type for that attribute. So, this is the key thing that you will have to focus, that once while we are talking about the schema, we are just talking about the relation name and the attribute name. Here now you need to put that attribute name as a column name and put the corresponding type of that attribute. Along with that, we need to put some integrity constraints. Integrity constraints are typically saying we will there are some questions specifically on that, so we will talk more about it. But integrity constraints, as I had explained, that we need to specify if some column cannot be null. So, in that need to be typically specified. We need to specify what is the primary key or which attributes together form the primary key. So, that neither they can be null nor there can be two records where the values over these primary key attributes match. So, with all that decision, you create the table as shown here against the schema, and once the table has been created, here the instructor table is created, then comes the next group of SQL statements that you should master is how to put data into the table. So, that is the insert. So, this is that syntax that we have seen before, and here we are showing a lot of 6 records getting inserted in the table one by one. And the key thing to remember in terms of insert kind of statement is that the insert takes a list of values, and the values must be listed in the same order in which you have listed the attributes in the create table. And every insert you execute, the corresponding row gets created with that particular tuple. It is also possible to change the design of a table, because you may have created a design today, and a couple of months down the line you might feel that some attribute may need to be added. So, you do that with the alter table. So, by doing alter table you can add attributes to that table. So, an example is shown here. The original instructor table that we took did not have a date of birth. Now, we are adding a date of birth. So, the syntax is given here, and we have said that they will have a default value which is null. So, if you do not specify what the default value is, then the default value will be taken as null. The key part of SQL query is the retrieval kind of query, which is the select clause, select from where. So, this is which we should practice very heavily. So, select specifies what are the columns in the output, from specifies what are the tables from which the data will be queried, and where specifies the condition under which this result will be produced. So, if you just do select star from instructor, then there is no where clause. So, all records from the table will be put in the output, and since you are doing a select star, all attributes, all columns, so whole table will be shown when you do select star from instructor in this case. In the next one, we are showing that instead of doing all the attributes, we are just showing the ID and department name from the instructor, but there is still no where clause. So, all records will be shown. So, this is simply doing a projection on ID and department name. The third example shows when we have added a particular where clause condition. We are saying that select ID department name from instructor where salary is greater than 60,000. So, in this case, in the output there will be two columns ID and department like the second query, but only those records will be shown, only those IDs and department names will be shown where the salary is greater than 60,000. So, whichever record satisfies this becomes true for this condition, those records will only be shown. The last one shows the same query, but we are now outputting all the attribute values. So, actually the query writing is, if you start with small queries and start practicing, it is not at all a difficult process, and you can easily master that, and do practice more on the assignment and look up at the tutorial next week. There was a question saying that there is some confusion in terms of what you call DDL, what you call DML, and what Oracle calls and so on. The fact of the matter is actually these are not very standardized nomenclature. Different systems, specific Oracle is a specific database management system, like SQL Server is another, Postgres SQL is another. So, different systems may have little different nomenclature. So, but in principle you can think of basically SQL comprising of 4 types of language constructs. One is the data definition. So, here I have shown this tree. Data definition is all the DDL kind of statements in SQL primarily changes the schema. It does not talk about the data. So, it creates a schema, it changes a schema, it removes a schema, it gives a new name to the schema and so on. Whereas, data manipulation talks about both data retrieval as well as changing the data. So, I might want to do a select from where to extract some data from the table, or I might want to add new data items, add new rows, I might want to delete some rows, I might want to make changes to certain attributes of a row. So, those are all considered to be together in terms of data manipulation. Some systems again subdivided in terms of data retrieval, which is read kind of manipulation, and the true manipulation, which are make changes to the data in the table. The other two we had not mentioned because you need some background in the related part of the theory. One is the transaction control language. This will be discussed, this part of SQL we will discuss once we have done transactions in the module in the week 7. Week 7 we are doing transactions. So, I will discuss about this TCL part at that time. We talked little bit about the data control language in terms of granting, revoking. So, these are basically controlling the access. So, those kind of SQL are called the DCL part. So, that is the basic classification, but do not take this as a very serious terminology because it varies between actual different systems. There was questions on different types of keys, which was discussed actually in module 4. If you look at slide number 12, we will find the details again. So, here are again some examples. So, the key thing here, if you just think about the principles, just think of it this way. First, try to be clear about the concept of a key. The concept of a key, it is one or more than one attributes, so that if I have 2 records that match on these attributes, then they must match on the rest of all the attributes. This is the key concept of a key. So, I could otherwise say that whenever I have a populated table, then I can never have 2 records which have identical values in the key attributes. So, that is the concept of a key. Now, naturally the question is the key unique? The answer is no, there could be multiple different subsets of attributes which have this property. Now, also it is very obvious to understand that if a subset of keys, a subset of attributes form a key, then any superset of that will also behave like a key. If so, in that way the different terminology are introduced, and we say that a set of attributes form a candidate key if it is a minimal set. So, keep that minimality is important for saying something is a candidate key, which means that a set of attributes can behave as a key and none of its possible subsets will behave as a key, then it is a candidate key, and I can have multiple candidate keys. And if I have any superset of a candidate key, then I will say it is a super key. Now, since there could be multiple candidates, so it is we will need to finally decide as to what we use as a key in the database. So, that particular candidate key which we use as a key for storing the records is called the primary key, and all other candidate keys are called the alternate keys. So, that is the basic concept, the candidate key, the super key. Primary key is the candidate key that we actually intend to use, all other candidate keys are alternate keys. And the one other key concept that we had discussed is about the foreign key. Foreign key is something which the attribute that exists, or attribute, a set of attributes that exist in a relation, but is actually a key in some other relation. So, when you are setting up relationships between 2 different relations, the key of one relation those attributes featuring in the other relation will be termed as a foreign key, and this is what is required in terms of the referential integrity that we will have. So, these are the types of key references that you will find in the relational database system. There was a very kind of trivial question in terms of what is the difference between file system and DBMS. If you go back to the very first module, the very first discussion that we started in slide 7 and 8, we discussed as to why do you need database system, that is what are the shortcomings of a file system, both all in terms of efficiency, in terms of efficiency of access, in terms of storage, in terms of being able to manipulate it easily and so on. The database systems are required. So, please go through that again. Just for your quick reference, we have also provided a comparative table here in this presentation comparing between file system and the database management system on different aspects of definition, data redundancy, sharing of data, consistency, difficulty or ease of search access, isolation, integrity, security problems, atomicity, concurrency. Some of these terms you will not understand yet, because they are part of the transaction management concept. So, which will be discussed in the week 7, and you will then understand them well. There is a question asking what is data integrity and integrity issues in file systems. This was also discussed at several places. Data integrity is, if we are keeping the data in the database, we need to make sure that the data is correct. Data is as I have kept it. Data is, we have not created inconsistent data, and the data integrity talks about that the data that I have in the database system at any point of time must satisfy the requirements of the real world. So, for example, we just talked about the primary key. So, primary key wants to ensure that if I have a relation where the two records match on the primary key fields, they must be identical. So, the ensuing integrity, this is the integrity of the database. So, if I could create a relation where the two distinct records match on the key attributes, but yet or prime attributes, and yet are actually not same, they differ on some other attributes, then the integrity of the entity will get violated. So, that is one concept of integrity. There are different concepts. So, one is entity integrity, which primarily comes in terms of the primary keys. There is a referential integrity. So, this is the concept of foreign key. So, if two relations are related by a relationship, so I have an instructor relation, I have a department relation, and we say that the instructor works for that department. So, in the instructor's relation, the department in which he works will feature. Now, in the department relation, if that particular department name is not there, then certainly you have a problem. So, the instructor works in certain department, and that department cannot be found out in the department relation. So, we will have a violation in terms of the referential integrity, that you are trying to refer to that department, but you are unable to do that, and that is what is enforced through foreign keys. So, that talks about the referential integrity of the database system. And then you also have a whole lot of, so we have seen primary keys ensure entity integrity, foreign keys ensure referential integrity, and then we talk about a whole lot of domain integrity. So, you know certain things are possible. You know that well, if somebody is an employee, then the age of that person must be 18 years. This is a domain integrity constraint. That is, if you have someone with a date of birth, so that the age of that person is actually less than 18 years, then that is something that you do not expect in your database to happen. You may want to say that okay, there is a minimum wage to be given to every worker. So, you want to ensure that you can never create a record in the database, in that relation that you have created for keeping the record of wages and employees, where the wage value is less than that given value. So, these are constraints which are not coming from the relational design per se, but these are constraints that hold in the real world, which you want to check, which you want to enforce on the database system in the design that you are doing in the lifetime of the data. So, naturally there are ways to do that in terms of creating domain and setting the constraint values. Constraint values can be set at the time of creating table, but the constraint values could be and this actually is an optional feature. So, you may not want to give something, you may not actually have a constraint, but if you have, then you can specify that, and the domain integrity can be maintained in that manner. So, these are the main issues of data integrity that a relational database system will deal with. There are some more information given here for your studies. Okay. The next question is a very trivial one. The question is what is the difference between SQL and MySQL? SQL, as you know, is a structured query language, and there are several different relational database systems that exist, and all relational database systems support this SQL. So, MySQL happens to be one such database management system, which is free open source database system. There are several commercial ones like SQL Server, Oracle, Informix, and so on. So, the two things are completely different. SQL and MySQL are completely different. One is a language, another is a specific system that people use for creating databases. The next group of questions relate to normal forms. So, there were some very inspecific questions on this, but let me again quickly recap on why normal forms. See, probably the questions are coming from two sides. One is, why do we need normal forms and what do we do with them? What we have shown through examples, and this was dealt in quite a depth in terms of module 17, module 19 and so on, is if I look into any real world situation, then there are a lot of dependencies that exist. So, that if I know the value of certain attributes, the values of other attributes, some other attributes may be determined by the values of this. So, if that kind of a and we have shown that these are what called are functional dependencies. Now, what happens is when the value of one attribute can decide the value of another attribute, then quite naturally the value that is determined by the other attribute is a redundant data. So, if you do not take proper care, and if you, for example, if you create a relational schema where all attributes are put in the same schema, and there are several other dependencies which will get fixed. For example, if you have a roll number for a student, think about your college enrollment. If you have roll number, now can you have two students with the same roll number? You cannot. So, what does it mean? That if you know the roll number, then you can determine all the values of all other attributes, or in other words, if you take two records which have identical roll number, or their all other factors will have to be same, it will have to be unique. So, if you do not take care of these dependencies, then it is quite possible that you might have lot of redundancy in the data, and the moment you have redundancy, there are anomalies that happen. So, if I have redundancy, if I have the same data, I work for computer science department, my colleague Professor Indranil Sengupta works for computer science department, my colleague or Professor Aurobindo Gupta works for computer science department. So, we can have an instructor table where we have our name, we have the department as computer science, computer science, computer science, and then we know that the computer science is housed in by the side of get5. Now, so we write computer science by the side of get5, computer science by the side of get5, computer science by the side of get5. So, this is because computer science, the department is housed in a building. So, wherever it is, that is fixed, it is irrespective of whether I work for computer science or Professor Sengupta works for it or Professor Aurobindo Gupta works for it. So, there is a dependency from the department's name to department's location, and because of that we will get a whole lot of redundant data. So, if in future the computer science department moves to a different location, then changes will need to be made for the location value of each one of these, and it is quite possible that some, because of some programming error, because of some coding error, some changes may not be done in a certain record, and that is what causes what we say is anomaly. So, you can have anomaly due to insertion, you can have anomaly due to deletion, you can have anomaly due to update. So, what you want is, you want that the designs should be such that these kind of anomalies can be minimized, and that can be done provided you can minimize the redundancy. Now, how do you minimize redundancy? So, you want to define certain properties which your relational schema must satisfy, so that it can reduce the dependencies. So, why do we have so many normal forms? Because depending on different situation, it may not be possible to represent your relation satisfying all the conditions of one particular normal form. So, we start with a very relaxed condition. We say that first thing we need is a one normal form. One normal form simply says that if I have attributes, then they cannot be multiple valued. That is, one attribute for a record must have a single value, and if that satisfies, then we say that it is a one NF, one normal form relation, because without that you can understand there will be a lot of problems. If I can have multiple values in the same attribute, then you would not know whether how to put these values, how to extract these values, and so on. Then we add, can we have, if I have a one normal form relation, and what happens if I have a partial dependency on that? If the partial dependency is there, then we say no, that is not acceptable, we should remove that, and we define what is a two normal form or the second normal form. Then say okay, it can be in second normal form and still have a transitive dependency. You get to defining what is a third normal form. So, if you again with this again discussion, again if you go back to module 19 and again go through, you will see that I have step by step developed a design, a number of designs starting from the one normal form, two normal form, three normal form, and so on. And first there is a fourth normal form also, and there is another kind of normal form between the second normal form and the third normal form, which is called the Boyce code normal form. So, it is given when you have a schema, you need to check as to what kind of a normal form can you guarantee, and if you cannot guarantee that for your schema, you need to normalize, and that is this whole process. That is, normalizing is nothing but decomposing your relation into a smaller relation. So, instead of putting all the attributes together, you take subsets of attributes and define different relations. So, that is the basic decomposition concept that we have explained. Now, what happens if you decompose your attributes? The consequence of that is, how do you get back the original schema? Because you originally wanted to keep all the values of all the attributes for all the records that you will have. So, how do you get back from the decomposed relation back to the original relation? You need to do a natural join. You have understood what is the process of natural join. You will have to have common attributes over which you do a natural join. Now, once you define this process, then it is very critical that it must guarantee that if I decompose, I keep the values in the decomposed manner and then I take a natural join. The question is, do I get back the original relation? If I have not taken care, what will happen is I will not get back the original relation, I will get the records in the original relation plus some more records which did not exist. So, I have lost information. It is not physically losing record value, but if I have more records than what I had originally in the relation, then I have lost the actual information. So, when I do the normalization, I must ensure that this kind of a phenomena does not happen, and I need what I defined to be the join to be a lossless one. So, there are properties as we have discussed. The other is certainly you are doing all this because you have a lot of dependencies that exist. Now, after you have decomposed, if you have a dependency which has few attributes in relation R1 and few attributes in relation R2, how will the system ensure that that dependency is actually satisfied. That dependency is actually being maintained in the data that you are putting in. You will not be able to do that. So, to be able to check whether a particular functional dependency is indeed satisfied at the instance of your data with the actual data that you have in the decomposed relations, you will have to again take a join and check that, and that taking join, as you know by now, is quite an expensive operation. So, you cannot we would not like to do that. So, the question is, if I have a number of decomposed relations, then is my original set of functional dependencies covered by this decomposed relation, so that if I just check for dependency in each every decomposed relation, then the functional dependencies that we actually check, their closure will mean the original closure of the original set of functional dependencies. That is closure, you know, closure is all the functional dependencies that can at all happen. So, I may not be able to check the actual set of functional dependencies in the decomposed relation, but if I can check the set of functional dependencies in each and every decomposed relation, and if that set in the closure gives me the same set of functional dependencies to be checked, which was the original set of functional dependencies, then we will say that the dependency has been preserved. So, the whole exercise of normalization is to check whether which normal form conditions are satisfied. If it is not, then try to decompose. At least it is preferred always that you have a Boyce code normal form, because that is the strongest one of the strongest kind of normal form that you have. But as we have seen earlier, not in every case Boyce code normal form decomposition is possible, which will ensure preservation of dependency. The theory told us that I can always decompose into Boyce code normal form with lossless join, but not necessarily with dependency preservation. So, if preserving the dependencies are critical for your design criteria, then you will have to go for a third normal form decomposition, which will ensure both. So, this is I mean, if you understand this philosophy, then the rest of the algorithm and the process are very straightforward. All that you need to check is to remember the first normal form condition, multi-valued attributes, the second normal form condition, partial dependency, the third normal form condition, the transitive dependency, and the condition of the Boyce code normal form, where every non-trivial dependency must have a left hand side which is a super key. So, with that I will not go through each and every step here. This is I have just taken some made some examples which are somewhat different from the ones that you had earlier shown. So, here I have shown step by step, the starting with a relation and having a number of having two no, not two, actually four functional dependencies. There is one which violates the third normal form, because it is a transitive dependency, as well as it causes a transitive dependency, and as well as the left hand side is not a key, and therefore, it is not in the normal form. And then how we decompose that, and as it happens that we can do a decomposition in this case, which is both Boyce code and third normal form, and I will urge you to go through the steps. Preferably take the problem first, try to work it out yourself, and then look through the steps and explanations that are given here. In the next slide, we have just slightly modified the design by introducing another additional functional dependency, and having introduced that, we still see that it still has transitive dependency and violates third normal form. Again, the steps show you how to decompose and guarantee a lossless join decomposition preserving normalization. In the next example, we have taken different set of functional dependencies and shown that where one of the functional dependency, the third one here, actually violates the Boyce code condition, because the left hand side is not a key. Here, if you look closely, you will immediately find that the keys are super key, candidate keys are V and WZ. So, the functional dependency 1 and 2 satisfy the Boyce code normal form, and we have, but the third one, Y determines Z, actually violates the Boyce code normal form. So, it calls for a decomposition to be done, and we have shown how the decomposition can be done. But after the decomposition, both the relations, decomposed relations, are in Boyce code normal form, and so that guarantees that the join is lossless. But you will find that after the decomposition, the second dependency WZ determining Vxy cannot be checked either on the first decomposed relation R11 or on the second decomposed relation R12. So, this decomposition is lossless join, but it does not preserve the dependency. So, this is the key thought in that. Again, in the tutorials that are going to come next week through the design process, you will find several examples of functional dependencies and the decomposition that you need to do with them. Moving on to other different fragments of questions. There was the number of questions in terms of the importance of database management system, particularly in medical fields, clinical data management. Actually, it is difficult to list because there is it is so important in every area, and so in the medical field as well, that it has used almost in everywhere. It is used in hospital management. Any hospital that you go to, the whole hospital is managed through database system. It's critical in clinical management, patient management, public health management. You go to pathology labs, those all tests, which test, which person, which doctor, everything is maintained through database systems there in the drug research and so on. I mean, in any field, it is so much of, so the other questions were the real world implementation, how can we use database system in practical life, how it helps in the industry and so on. The question, the point is that you look at anything. If can you think of living in a world which does not have Facebook, does not have WhatsApp, no mail, no net banking, anything that you think of behind that, there is a whole lot of database management system. So, the applications are so plenty that any area that you talk of will have that, and that's become critical for every aspect of the industry. There was one comment rather than a question from one of our friends who said the advancement in data management in world and why India is left behind instead of being aware of these advancements. I would have loved to get some data about this, some published data or some references of what you are referring to, because personally I do not at all agree. India, on my perception, is actually pretty much one of the leaders in terms of database systems, their management, their advances and so on. For example, our other database happens to be one of the largest database management database system in the world. I mean, there's no other country has a database, public database system of that size. So, if you have specific references you are talking about from published data, please write to me, and I will check into that and respond in the forum. There has been that's again questions back on certain core issues, the use of triggers. Trigger is basically a feature where you want to tell the database system that, well, if something happens in the system, then you let me know. So, we often these days get SMS from the banks that, well, so much money has been put to your account, or so much money has been deducted from your account and so on, and we get intimated. So, triggers are which are attached to specific events. So, in a banking system, transaction system, it could be attached to whether money is credited to the accounts relation or is debited from the accounts relation, and corresponding event will get triggered, you will get fired. That is where the name comes from, the events getting triggered, and accordingly the actions can be taken. So, database systems, relational database systems allow you to set triggers on relations, and that is an inherent, but over the last couple of years or a decade or so, it has become less of a practice to use triggers, because triggers are very expensive in terms of checks. So, you can understand that if I set a trigger that please let me know the event when my account is credited or it is debited, then every transaction that happens with that relation, everything that happens with that relation will have to check for if this event has happened. So, that becomes slows down the whole process. So, The typical solution, equivalent solution, is to handle them in the application. So, we have talked about 3 tiers of the application. So, typically these kind of trigger solutions are done in the business logic layer, because before the debit or credit has to happen, naturally somebody has had to initiate this, and that initiation has to go through the business logic layer. So, the business logic layer actually gets to know that this is going to happen, a debit or credit is going to happen even before the corresponding manipulation query has been fired on the database. So, usually the tracking is done from that, and usually the triggering is done from that, and that is a more cost effective preferred solution. Security problems, there is no how security problems are solved by DBMS, there is no single answer to that, and we have discussed in parts in different modules, particularly in module 22, 17 to 23 slides. If you see, we have talked about different security issues, security in terms of access control, security in terms of passwords, authorization, various aspects, and security is such a deep topic that we cannot really go deep into different security systems that the database management systems have. So, in short, security is the answer to this question is security is usually managed in a cooperative way. A part of the security is managed in the front end, a part is managed in the business logic layer, where you try to check for the correct access and so on, and then a big part is managed within the database in terms of the different security aspects that I talked about in the module 22. This is an interesting question on how SQL handle big data. Now, the difficulty of understanding this is big data is actually not only about having a large volume of data. So, if you refer to this diagram, typically this is called the 3 V's of big data. Naturally, one of the V's is volume, that it means it is a really large data, and but for that SQL would still be able to work. SQL still can actually support, and I mean different database systems which are relational and uses SQL would be able to support that kind of very large data. But the problem is with the other 2 V's. One is with the data velocity, which means the rate at which or the kind of turnaround time that you are ready to give to the database systems. If you are looking at a turnaround time in seconds or in millisecond, the typical relational systems would be able to comply. But if you are looking at a response time which is below microsecond, or if in nanosecond, then the relational systems would often not be able to comply with that. So, you need to do different other things for that. But the main complexity of the big data come from the third V, which is data variety. In the relational system, we are talking about just refer to the fact that when you create table, the data that you keep, for every attribute you are saying what is the type of the data. For every relation you are saying how are the data organized, related. But nowadays we are often talking about a lot of data which are not organized, which are not structured in that manner, and they are in general called unstructured data. So many comments are being made on the Facebook posts. They are completely unstructured because they are parts of English sentences. There are you are riding a Uber, and when you get off the cab, the driver requests that please give a good comment. So, you write a comment on the Uber. You have a trouble, you can put a comment on the Uber. So, all those go into very large database, but the basic problem is it cannot be supported by a relational design, because there is no relational structure in a natural language sentence. So, there are different other database models for that. Earlier there were models which are called hierarchical network models, and those are getting revived in terms of managing big data databases. One of the very common big data database is NoSQL, which uses a non-relational query system. So, as the name suggests that it is non-relational, so SQL will not be able to help you in that directly. But this is details of this is not in the scope of this course, but obviously you can pick up items from the net and try to get a little bit of self education on this. There have been number of career questions in terms of what to do after I have finished this course, and what to study which give me good job, if it is considered important, all these. I will skip those for now, because primarily when we end the course and in the end module or so, I will discuss about what is the road forward. That is, you have done this certification for database management systems, what can you do next? So, what you should do next, how you should do. So, I will talk about those in a structured way during that. So, I will skip that for now. Just specifically for the fourth questions, can I get a chance to read in the IIT from the certification course? The answer directly is no. You are already getting this opportunity, being able to attend, register for this course and doing this certification, you are actually attending the course with IIT. But if you mean that whether you can get admission to BTech or MTech programs, of course, these are completely different on different programs, and they have other different criteria. You will have to go through those and qualify for yourself. There were some queries which are somewhat not very directly related, or I did not know how to answer them. One question is, do you teach the same content in online courses as you teach at IIT Kharagpur? In terms of database systems, yes, we teach the same content. The content is not different, the book is not different. It is the same textbook which is followed while teaching at different IITs, or there are 3-4 equivalent textbooks. So, yes, you can rest assured that you are learning the same content as a student of IIT will learn in the classroom if he or she is attending the database course. There are some more questions in terms of assignment upload and all those. The answers are given here. I would not go through that. Regarding the WhatsApp group, I have no idea. I think there is no such WhatsApp group. Okay, so before we summarize, let me just check if there are some questions on the that has come to the chat. Is there any questions, Himadri? Jadav JE, sir, I am facing problem in module 4, 2NF and 3NF. Jadav, please, we have already had the detailed discussion on 2NF and 3NF. So, please try to understand that more and go through those modules again. And then if you have problems, specific problems, I mean, if you just say facing problems, then certainly there is no answer to facing problems. So, if you have specific examples which you are not finding difficult to solve, or you are not being able to understand how it is getting normalized, please write on the forum, we will respond to that. Sir, next question is from Nirav Bhatt, sir. Does our database or Oracle engine internally convert high level SQL to relational algebra form? The answer is yes. Nirav, this is an excellent question. So, this is these are certain topics which we would not have time to discuss. These are called query processing, that how is the query actually executed. So, from the SQL there is a query processing, query translation process, which is kind of a compilation process which translates it into a relational algebra form, and then finds out what is the best relational algebra expression that you can have, and then it finds out a way to execute that. So, that will come under query processing. Unfortunately, in this course we will not have time to discuss that, but in the Silverstadt's book there is a detailed chapter on query processing and optimization. You might want to study that and learn on your own. Again, Surya Shikhar Raj, I am unable to understand nested queries. This does not help me to help you. Please give specific examples and we will try to show you whether if you are doing things right, or if you are not being able to understand that, because I mean, just go through the basic fact that a nested query, the basic principle of a nested query is it will produce some result, and that result can be used either as a part of a condition. So, we have shown nested queries in where clause, or that result itself can be considered to be a temporary relation and can be used as a part of the from clause, or that result can be used in the select clause in terms of throwing up the final result. Now, you have to specifically put questions in terms of where you are finding the difficulty, take examples and ask your question, then we will try to help you on that. Shankar ji, how to remove data redundancy? This we have just discussed again in terms of the normal form. It is all through decomposition, and I mean you have to understand the redundancy in terms of dependencies, the functional dependencies, and then if you want to do more in terms of the multi-value dependencies, though most databases use only functional dependencies, and then based on that you can do into the decomposition into the normal form, and that will remove that. Again we have discussed today. Munshi Khalid, sir, what is clustered and non-clustered index? I think this has been clustered and non-clustered index are very specifically with example has been discussed where we have discussed indexing. So, again do not ask such a generic question, go through that again, and if you have specific instances which you are not understanding, please point that out. Again from Munshi Khalid, what is the difference between ER diagram and class diagram? Yes, that's a good question, Munshi Khalid. There is fundamentally not much of difference. It is basically historical. ER diagram is entity relationship diagram was the first kind of diagram through which the real world was being captured. The information of real world is being captured in the diagrammatic form and then being used in terms of forming the relational schema corresponding to different entities, the E, and the different relationships, the R, and that is how the relational database design process started. Subsequently, there were several evolutions in this kind of, this is called a modeling framework, because you are creating the ER diagram as a model for what the real world actually is. So, there were a lot of advances in that and a whole paradigm got created which is known as UML. Unified Modeling Language, in which you not only capture the concepts of the entities and the relationships, but you try to capture concepts about various other things, about the who can use, who might want to use what functionality of a system, who, what if I have a task, then what is the order in which the tasks will be done, and all these. And the class diagram happened as one of the major components in that. Now, there is a severe similarity between ER diagram and class diagram. An entity in ER diagram, whatever we call entity, in the class diagram we call that as class. In ER diagram we have attributes and we show them as kind of names written in ellipses and attached to the entity. In class diagram you just list them in the basic class name box, and in the class diagram you specifically also ask for what are the types of each of these attributes. So, it is more specific. The relationships in ER diagrams is association in class diagram, it just has a different name, but you have all the same concepts as in the ER diagram in terms of one to one, many to one, many to many relationships, and different other derived associations, and what is a strong and weak different kind of associations. So, I would should say that they are kind of equivalent things, class diagram, and what has happened is ER diagram, then UML happened, UML had so refined class diagram. So, many of the concepts of class diagram were again taken back into ER diagram. So, if you go through the module again, particularly the presentation slides, because I do not think the video really had details, because I did not go through them while I was talking, but I have put them in the presentation, that there are different conventions of how you do the ER diagram. So, some of those conventions are more like the class diagram convention. So, if you are familiar with class diagram, pretty well use that. In a ER diagram also, if you want to use the notations of class diagram, there you are absolutely fine in doing that. Cross join, okay, I'll in the tutorial we will give examples of that, because that is because to be able to explain that we need to create some data set, without that it will not be clear to you. So, we will include that. Embedded SQL, at the beginning today I discussed a little bit. Again, examples are required, otherwise it has been discussed in the module. So, in the tutorial we will have some examples of embedded SQL written with C. So, that you will be able to see that how can you use the C program to actually extract the fire queries on a database and extract the result from the database. Anil Kumar ji is asking, can DBMS be hacked? Any computing system can be hacked. Now, if you ask how easy it is, well, it is not easy. So, I am not personally a good hacker, so I cannot give you my personal experience in terms of how easy it is to hack say Oracle database system, but this has to do a whole lot in terms of the security that you have. So, if you we again do not have time to go into details in terms of what protections you can take against hacking. Actually, what is consensus is what protections can be against. So, that is the whole lot of security mechanisms. And if you look at different relational database systems between Oracle and Informix and MySQL, SQL Server, all these would have different kinds of security mechanisms. So, the ease of hacking would be different in different database systems. So, for example, if you have a very sensitive financial data, say stock market transaction data and so on, certainly I would not advise you to use a database system like MySQL, whose security guarantees are much less compared to a database system like Oracle. But if you are I mean, for a whole lot of other database systems where getting hacked may not be that much of a top of the line concern, you can use MySQL and those kind of. What is atomicity in database from Siddhant Jain? We have not yet discussed it. It's a topic which comes under transaction management. So, this will be discussed in week 7. Nirav Bhatt again, what if, what is the last part? You have written left part, do you mean left part of dependency? Possibly, I am assuming that what you wanted to write is what if left part of dependency is combination of prime and non-prime, and right side is a non-prime attribute. See, and is it in 2NF? See, 2NF does not concern with the primality or non-primality of attributes. 2NF is concerned with the partial dependency. So, you are left, whether if your left side is a combination of prime and non-prime, I specifically cannot see any consequence of that. It would be good if you can give examples, and so that we can talk in concrete. I am requesting all of you again, when you ask questions, do not ask very generic questions like explain what is this. I mean, well, certainly in some cases I would like to do that, but it would help if you ask specific questions, that this is the design, this is what is not working, this is the query, this is what the SQL that I have written and that is not working, that is not giving me the correct result, it is giving this result and I want that result. Be specific and ask, that way we will be able to answer you in more concrete terms, and you will also be able to learn quicker, right. Is there anything else, Himadri? Okay, that's kind of all. Thank you very much for your attention. Before I close, I would just like to summarize in terms of the way forward. Please note that the course is of 8 weeks, and there is a whole lot of content even after quite a bit of the things that could not be covered. What we are covering is a large content. But just focus that the key areas for study, key areas for practice are SQL and SQL query coding. You must learn that well, must, because that is learning to write queries given a relational schema. So, someone else may have designed the schema, but you should be able to write all kinds of queries. That is the first level of effectiveness as an engineer that will be expected from you in whatever company you want to join. So, that is the first thing you need to learn well. So, practice that, focus on that well, do the tutorials, assignments well and do that. The second level would be if given a situation whether you can do the ER diagram, the relational analysis, the functional dependencies, the relational design, normalization and create schema which can be used for a database solution. So, that will give you the second level of engagement in different companies. So, that should be your second focus area, where you must try to do different situations, solve different design problems, different kind of dependencies. So, please focus next heavily on that, and once you are being able to create a schema, then naturally you can try out different queries and query coding on that. The third level, if you are to go to the next level, you must understand the transactions and the concurrency. A database is used at the same time by hundreds and thousands of users doing things independently. How do you make sure that everybody can do whatever the requirement that particular user has, and still the system can work in a very efficient manner, everybody gets response in a very quick terms, and those are the concepts of transactions and concurrency. That is the third level of expertise that you can acquire. We are yet to discuss this. We will discuss this in week 7, and then you can see through what are the different things to really learn in that. What is serializability, what is conflict serializability, view serializability, you need to understand all this. And please keep in mind that as I have already mentioned, that we will have tutorials on design and query coding, which we will share with you next week. And again, I would reiterate that I have mentioned the textbook, the Sylvester Scott Sudarshan's textbook. It is an excellent book. So, please do not think that it is enough to go through the presentation slides and the video and this interaction. You must read that book as thoroughly as you can. It is very much in line with the presentation, because presentations accompany that book, and they are very, very understandable, and you need to spend real good time on reading the book, understanding those concepts and working out the exercise if you really want to become a good database management system engineer. So, with that I would like to close this session. This video will be available also. We will update this presentation with the queries that we got online, and if there are certain responses to be given, and that will be shared to you. Enjoy the course, and with this I would like to thank my TAs, particularly Mr. Himadri Bhushan Bhuya and Madam Srijani Majumdar, and the staff of NPTEL for having given all of us this opportunity to interact. Have a good time and enjoy the course.